Hello? Okay, there we go. Hello, everyone. I'm Len Clark, member of the Board of Transportation at Large. And it's great to see everyone here this morning. I hope you've enjoyed today's session on innovative transportation solutions. And if you haven't already, please download our event app. That way you can access event details, the schedule, and participate in all of our poll questions. And we are excited to have you join us for the Smart Vehicle Revolution, where safety and convenience meet session. And please welcome our moderator, Logan Hodges, NCTA's Director of Communications and Marketing.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. We are going to kick things off with a quick video. One of the most exciting frontiers in transportation is vehicle-to-everything transition, or V2X. This technology enables vehicles to communicate with infrastructure and other vehicles, unlocking new possibilities for mobility, safety, and sustainability. North Carolina is proud to be a part of this evolution. Through this in-vehicle payment pilot, we're exploring how drivers can pay tolls directly from their vehicles, no transponders, just seamless, secure transactions. Today, you'll hear from leaders who are shaping the future of transportation with cutting-edge technology and a shared commitment to delivering real results for our communities. Before we get into the discussion, I'd like to introduce myself and our panelists. My name is Logan Hodges. I'm the Director of Communications and Marketing for the North Carolina Turnpike Authority, or NCTA. I'm honored to moderate today's conversation. Next, I'd like to introduce J.J. Eden. He is the NCTA Executive Director. He's widely known as the father of EasyPass. JJ has more than 50 years of leadership and experience in the tolling industry, making him perfectly suited to be the tolling visionary behind this pilot. Mr. Jim Nichols is also joining us today as Volvo's Vice President of Head of Product and Technology Consumer Offer. With 10 years at Volvo and a background as an Emmy-winning meteorologist, Jim brings storytelling and innovation to this partnership. We're also grateful to have Brooke Beasley. Brooke is the Strategic Account Executive for State and Local Government and Education at Red Hat. With nearly a decade at Red Hat, she helps public sector clients modernize infrastructure and adopt open source solutions, expertise she brings to this pilot's digital transformation efforts. Also here is Chapin Flynn, Mastercard's Senior Vice President of Transit and Urban Mobility. With 25 years of experience in business transformation, he's reimagining how people move through cities. His leadership in transportation innovation positions him to shape the payment process of this pilot. And finally, I'd like to introduce Vitu Shakar, Microsoft's government strategy leader for U.S. state and local governments. He drives AI-powered innovation for public agencies, providing the Azure-based environment where much of this pilot is going to be housed. Thank you for joining the discussion today. We've got a great conversation lined up for you today. We'll kick things off with a 45-minute moderated discussion, followed by 15 to 20 minutes of Q&A from the audience. So start thinking of your questions as we go through the discussion. So to get us started, I want to talk about the basics of the pilot, give us a good overview. So I'd like to start with JJ. For the audience, could you tell us briefly how this in-vehicle payment pilot works and why paying tolls this way matters?
Well, we're all, North Carolina, we're all about the customer. How do we make it easier for the customer? How do we make it more efficient, right? How do we make it more cost effective? So the systems we're using today are relatively old, right? The transponder itself is over 50 years old, so it's time to look to new things. We started looking at a digital transformation of all our systems back about 4 or 5 years ago when Manish came in, our CTO, and started to actually put things together. So as we started controlling our data more, we started looking at, well, how are the customers actually dealing with this? How are we going to do this? And it's always been my dream for 50 years, since actually before we started Easy Pass, to do in-car payment, and to do something easy. So where people, they don't have to go get a transponder, they don't have to worry about where to put it in the dashboard, they don't have to take a credit card and drop it out the window and you're trying to pay your fast food or your drug bill, right, at the drive-through pharmacy. So we wanted to bring that to the customer. So it's all about the customer. And then when this opportunity came up, literally Mastercard called us about a year ago, and they brought in Volvo and to bring this together. And we brought such a great team together. I mean, look at who's up here in this panel that looking at this moving forward. This is transformational. And, we're looking at, Logan mentioned safety in the future. Well, this pilot right now, we're not going to talk a lot about that. This panel right now, we're talking about the payment side and how we do that. And, everybody's saying, what's this pilot? Why are you doing it? And I think you have to think of it as more than a pilot. We're installing the future. So things have changed. The way we pay for things have changed. Tap and go, right? Your cell phone, right? People want convenience, and that's what we're trying to bring.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of convenience, payments, that kind of evolution that's happened over the last 20 years or so, Chapin, could you tell us a little bit more of the payment side and how that works as part of this pilot?
Yeah, sure. Happy to do so, Logan. And thanks to the NCTA for having us here. Little did I know I would be on a panel with the father of Easy Pass. I feel very honored. And really thanks to the other panelists as well. Everybody's put a ton of work into this to get us here today. So, when I was thinking about this question in advance a little bit, and for any of you that are old like me, you might remember back in the day when I would go into like a department store or something with my parents, and they would say, well, what card do you have? And then they'd have to pull out that machine that you slide with the right carbon paper. And I think about that, and I think about what a transformational change has happened in the payments industry just to get to the point where you can even swipe a card and pay for it. And you didn't have to worry about, well, do you have this bank? Do you have that retailer? That was really complex back in the day. And that has kind of dramatically simplified. And I almost think about the transponders in the same way. When I think about the transponder, do you have the right transponder for the right location? And that's true in the US, but it's absolutely true in Europe, all over the world. And that's kind of where we are. Don't get me wrong, the transponder was a quantum leap forward. Non-gated, no gantries, was an incredible advance in tolling. But we're still at that point where there's not a lot of interoperability, not as much ease of use as we should have. And I think what this is really doing is this is really setting the future, not just of tolling, but of in-vehicle payments more broadly. And this is a really critical milestone in that journey. So I think I just, because I'm comfortable in the payment side, I think the analogy is very appropriate for the leaps that this is taking us forward in this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we think about the leap, this is that first step in that leap, as you mentioned. And Jim, would you mind kind of explaining, how people are going to participate, who's eligible to participate in this pilot, and what does this technology actually mean for Volvo drivers and eventually other vehicle manufacturers?
Sure. So, the benefit that we have now is we talk about kind of changes in. Talking about changes in payments, changes in tolling has been the changes in vehicles, and now all the vehicles are connected vehicles. And so, of course, you have the standard things, navigation and all of that has come along. But now the car is generating a tremendous amount of data, and it's the customer's decision of what they want to do with that data. And what the customers have come back and told us is that they want to continue to even out how they do their daily life. And so one of the opportunities that we see with that, of course, is tolling. And it's an area that we've been wanting to get involved in for a while. One is from a design and everything standpoint, it's kind of difficult with the transponders, but then also, we have this ability where we know where the car is, we know who's in the car, we know how many people are in the car. And so why can't we put all of that together in a way that benefits the customer, the driver, and also benefits the taxpayer, with the infrastructure. So with the app, the way that we've developed it is we're using all existing pieces that are within the car. And all of our cars are using the Google Android automotive system as a base. And we're one of the leaders in the development of that. But we're not alone. So it is a baseline that other automakers have taken on. And so as a result of that, when we sat down first with North Carolina, and this pilot is going to be limited to Volvo drivers that have the Google automotive system, which is several tens of thousands of cars, we said, well, why don't we take a step back and see about how we can look at scaling this for everyone's benefit. So it's very similar to what we did in 1959. We invented the three-point seatbelt. We had taken that technology, we offered it to all the automakers because it's something that needed to scale. We've done that with a lot of safety systems over the years, and we kind of taken that same approach now with this. So the application that we've developed for the pilot will be limited to Volvo, but we're purposely making it non-branded. And when we get beyond the pilot stage, the goal then is to work with the other automakers in getting this application then onto those cars. Because this only works when it is at scale. So, we view it as, yes, it's a pilot, and it's a small amount. We have to kind of work out how the pipes are going to work. But in our view, it's just the way that things will be done in the future. So we anticipate that the pilot will be successful, and then from there, rapidly scale it out to more cars.
Yeah, to become an expectation of the consumer to
Yeah,
have
absolutely.
this built in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brooke, I'd love to get your take on, we've talked about connecting vehicles, connecting payment systems, we're connecting to a new tolling agency and a system. So tell us more about that, and how does that work, and what role does Red Hat play in making all these connections?
So if you're not familiar with Red Hat, you just look over there. So we're locally based in Raleigh, headquartered. And just, I've heard interoperability, I've heard open. So Red Hat was the first billion-dollar open source company, right? So we partner closely with Mastercard, with Microsoft, with Volvo, just as a business, right? And so when we first started talking about this pilot and we started working with NCTA, honestly, it was like years before we started talking about some IoT stuff. It wasn't really a good fit at the time. But then when JJ and Manish started thinking outside the box of like, hey, how can we make this work? They wanted open, they wanted interoperability, they wanted scalability, they wanted some of that. It's our middleware software that is part of this pilot, but what they wanted was a platform where we could onboard all of these partners and it be seamless. They wanted an open platform, and that's what Red Hat offered. And so there's a couple of products that we're using in this pilot. One is Red Hat OpenShift Container Platform, and the other is 3Scale. And what these platforms offer, not only is it open, interoperable, but it allows, to your point, scalability, right? When we start onboarding more vehicle owners, more users, so that's really what the Red Hat piece offers. And then what everyone is interested in, and I know we'll get into this, but it's the security side of it, right? And that's something that's important to everybody, especially NCTA, the state of North Carolina, right, is keeping that data confidential. And Red Hat, the products that we have that NCTA is using, has 10 layers of built-in security. The data sits inside the cluster, so it's a very secured technology. But I think at the end of the day, it allows the openness, the interoperability, and the scalability that NCTA was looking for.
Okay, and even connecting other systems. So Vidu, from your perspective, what is Microsoft contributing to this pilot? What excites you about this pilot? Tell us a little more.
Well, it's going to be a very short answer. Not much. but just kidding. For us, at Microsoft, we are a 50-year-old startup still. And the focus remains on empowering every single person in an organization through technology, right? And behind the scenes, I'm sure a lot of you, when you start your day, it starts in Outlook. And perhaps when you end your day, it ends in Outlook as well. So Microsoft, in many ways, is embedded in our daily lives and in organizations. And as NCTA sort of went around this journey, the key piece was, how do you land all of that data, as Brooke mentioned, in a secure way, but also be able to analyze it, be able to create insights from it, and then use it for the next iteration of what this pilot is going to become at scale. And so from Microsoft's perspective, the platform we are offering really helps bring all of those things together. And the fact that nearly 3/4 of all tolling systems in the US run in some way, shape, or form on Azure makes it really easy for NCTA to be able to create this and then be able to scale across the country. The last piece, and I think perhaps even more important, and something maybe 2 years ago we weren't really thinking about, but now we are. 2 years ago, with ChatGPT coming on the forefront, AI has been top of mind for everyone. And I'm actually very proud to say that Microsoft has been on the forefront with partnership with OpenAI to be able to bring all of this in a way that is accessible for every single person, right? And so if you ever run into issues with tolling and you have to call NCTA, you will actually get through to a person or to a chatbot in a way where it's near seamless, irrespective of what language you're using. There's over 140 languages available on the platform. And that's, I think, the other key piece. And Manish will say this more eloquently than I can. This platform really helps prepare NCTA for adopting AI in a way that first and foremost is responsible, secures the data of every single resident from North Carolina, and then is able to formulate sort of that building block that any other tolling agency, whether in the US or globally, wants to adopt as sort of those building blocks. So Logan, I mean, I am actually really honored to be part of this panel and really looking forward to what this pilot can scale to, because, I mean, and as the Volvo folks have said this, I love the analogy that you used around the seatbelt, right? It's what's that building block of technology that we can then open source so that everybody can adopt. And I look at it and I see like there's a lot of potential around this, just given the fact on how our automobiles are advancing and how fast their adoption is taking place.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the future, laying those building blocks now. I wanted to kind of get everybody's take on what does this pilot mean for the immediate future for consumers, for drivers? What does this pilot look like in real terms? How's it going to improve people's lives? JJ, I'd love to start with you.
Yeah, well, first of all, right now you have to get a transponder, and it's interesting, the transponder sales stuff. Logan and I talk about this all the time. So we give away the sticker tag if you call, right, or stop by, right? Well, we also have a partnership now with Harris Teeter where you can go in and buy it for $3. So it's interesting, people are picking convenience over money in that particular case. We're selling more than we are giving away. So it's a kind of an impulse buy. People go in, they pick it up, and interestingly enough, they usually register them, right? So it's more convenience. So then when you pick up that transponder, as I mentioned a little bit before, you have to get it, take it, put it in your car, hopefully in the right spot, right? Hopefully not on the dashboard or in the glove compartment where it won't read, right? And sign up the account and everything like that. You have to go online, so you have to open your computer, do all that, or call and talk to somebody to make it happen. We're here, you go into your car, and a lot of times you get a new car and you're signing up for services anyway. You want the advanced GPS system, or you want, one of the radio systems, sign up for, Sirius XM or one of them. You're signing up for services anyway with your automotive company. So you're doing that anyway. So now there's an option, and I encourage everybody to go down and look. Volvo brought a car in, and we have the system running on that vehicle. Just like you're doing anything with your cell phone, you click off, yes, I want to share my data, this is the data I want, and my location and things like that. It's up to the customer. It's customer choice, right? Once you do that, now you even get more information. Because now you drive through with the transponder, and we've debated this in tolling for a long time. Do you want feedback to the customer or not? Well, before, we tried it with the transponder, but everybody's then looking for the transponder, and it was more of a distraction. In the Volvo, it's really subtle. It just pops up, toll paid, amount, and then when you finish, you want to pull up your account, boom, right? It's there. So it's adding all that security, convenience, all that. On top of it, today, you sign up for that account, we hold your credit card number. We do it very securely. Our employees are very vetted and stuff like that, but we hold that card today. In the future, the near future, right, that when you sign up, you put your credit card information in like you would when you sign up with us, only now that actual credit card number is tokenized. So it becomes a unique number to that transaction. So we don't hold it. We can't take that number now and go buy something at Best Buy, right, or anything. So it really improves the whole situation from security to convenience, everything. So, and then it opens the future for some things. I don't know if people really want to buy a hamburger, like that, but, other things like parking, it's kind of a natural, right? So and parking's bigger than tolling. But, tolling we've been doing in-car payment really with the transponder, or even when you used to drive up and hand your ticket in the Pennsylvania Turnpike and, for years. So this, and again, this isn't a revolution, it's an evolution. You mentioned before, this technology is all here. We didn't invent anything. I was talking to Mastercard and Volvo earlier, and it's like, we just took the pieces. Their car was already ready, right? Mastercard already has the tokenization and the systems on the backside, right? We already have the knowledge and stuff like that of actually doing in-car payment. All we did is took what was there and asked the people that were doing it to put it in place together and work together. And I think if there is a magic to this, or if there is something that's special about this project, that's it. I mean, how many times, especially government, right? I mean, we're the guys who lean on the shovels and stuff like that and don't do anything. Government coming and, putting a team together like this is just amazing, right? So it's just getting the right people in the room to make it happen. So.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on kind of the customer service side of this, the customer experience of what this looks like in the near-term future?
Well, there's a few things. One is, as JJ had already mentioned, right, when they're first setting up the vehicle, we set up all of the systems, the different things, the subscriptions, so they log into Spotify, SiriusXM, and everything. This is just now another thing to kind of log in. Where we kind of see this going is binding everything to what we refer to as a Volvo ID, right? So now, for instance, in our service lane, right, we bring a loaner car to the customer, we trade keys, and we take the car, we service it, and then we trade it back. In that type of scenario now, you're getting into a loaner car. You now could log in with your Volvo ID, and then all of the applications, including the tolling application, comes with the car. So now you're not remembering to bring a transponder from one car to another and stuff like that. Everything kind of comes with you, and it kind of binds with the driver. And then from there, we have built-in driver profiles. So you can even go further. Let's say, for whatever reason, you're sharing a car, and one has their one NCTA account, and the other one has another one. Maybe it's for business or whatever. You're able to do that when they use the phone as key, or the key to get into the car. We now have identified the driver, and then we can set all of the logins and everything for that specific driver in that car, rather than just having it in the car in general. So It's kind of that, seamless ability. You're not taking things, when we look at people going from car to car, they take their phone charger and they take their, I call it Easy Pass because I'm in New Jersey, but, the transponder. And, we sit there and we watch that and we go, why, right? Wireless charger, it doesn't matter what phone you have, you should be able to charge. And now with tolling, it doesn't matter what transponder or whatever you have, we should be able to move the stuff over to the other car.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts on customer experience?
Yeah, I had one, which is just, I think when we first started connecting, JJ was kind of talking about the user experience being absolutely paramount. And I think the nice part about what we've done is that we've sort of stuck to that, which is to say that is the guiding principle that says, are we making this better for the consumer? Because if it's just another way to collect money, but it's got a lot of friction in it, not so great. And I think the nice part about the solution that's been assembled here is that it ticks that box of it really is, once that initial permissioning and data entry has taken place, very seamless for the consumer. And I think that has been sort of a beacon for all of us as we've gone through this journey. And I would just say, Logan, you mentioned at the beginning, I wear this kind of global urban mobility hat. Tolling and parking and everything's one piece of it. But we're thinking about frictionless movement around urban environments more generally. I don't know if anybody's been to like London or New York or Sydney or Singapore lately, but you don't have to have like a Metro card to get around anymore. You just take your phone or your credit card out of your pocket, you tap it on the gate, and you just keep moving. I was in Paris 2 years ago, and I had to figure out with a family of 5, do they all have enough on their cards? Can I get from A to B? That represents friction, and that's the kind of thing I think that this pilot has really identified as we cannot have that as any piece of this. And I think it's, so far the execution has been really nicely done, and it really enables that seamless movement around these urban environments and in many cases rural environments as well. So I think that frictionless journeys is a really nice way to think about this, and JJ has really kept us on point there.
Yeah.
This is like built for me. I've got a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old, a Volvo, and I'm always late everywhere I go. So I'm like, I said, I will be your #1 pilot. I was like, sign me up. I always have a quick pass bill that is like sitting, my husband's like, this is $40. It was like 30 cents, and now it's $40. I'm like, I know, I forgot to pay it. And I'm in their office, and I don't even get a transponder. So this is, I can't wait. Sign me up. And I'm born and bred Johnston County. If you're from North Carolina, you know, like I'm JoCo all day long. And to go to Charlotte, to go anywhere, I'm like, come on, just make it easy for me. So I cannot wait.
In the meantime, she is going to walk out of here with a transponder.
Yes,
and I will personally install it in your car.
I'm supporting the state.
Yeah. And Chapin, you mentioned friction. So when we think about creating a frictionless journey here, can't help but think about policy, probably our least favorite topic. But for stakeholders, elected officials, what are some of the policy decisions that you can make, that we can make and advocate for now to make this technology more scalable, more adoptable in North Carolina and across the country?
Well, I think I'm going to give you a little bit of an odd answer to that one, because I think the first step is those of us on stage, I think, have to demonstrate that it is handled safely, securely, and responsibly, and that that data is not going to be used in any kind of irresponsible way, nor can it be, even if we really chose to do so. And so, rather than pointing at some of the policy that is absolutely a critical enabler, I would say first step is with us. And we need to be able to demonstrate that very consistently, which is, I think, one of the critical aspects of this pilot is that demonstration. I think following that, again, we've talked about scalability, everybody on stage. This isn't just, I don't think for many of us, is not just about North Carolina. It is about North Carolina being the first and putting us, the first person on the moon. But it's not about just North Carolina, and everything that's in place is in place to scale, but the policy has got to accompany that and often lead that effort. So I think the first piece of this is on us, and then it's followed quickly by our elected officials and the regular engagement of those officials in this journey.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on kind of policy?
Oh, if I can add a couple of things. By the way, how many elected officials are in the room or appointed?
Well, these guys.
Okay, all right. Well, I was going to say something that may not have gone on so well, but no, I'll refrain from that. The biggest issue we are facing right now is policy making at different governmental levels is disengaged, right? So federal policy may not translate in the same way at the state level, and definitely at times does not translate the same way at like the local level, right? So I think the key piece for us in terms of scalability, by the way, demonstrating something can be done securely is ground stakes, like basic, because that's the only way anyone else is going to want to adopt this, right? And I think that's been always a concern. If you look at any key piece of legislation or financial compliance policy that has come down, it's usually after something's gone wrong. 2008, 99, like you can go back in time, and policies, especially around financial regulation, have always come because something has gone wrong. We can't let that happen in transportation. Transportation, perhaps, is the only other industry outside of healthcare where lives are at stake. And if we look at what US DOT sort of at the federal level has talked about, Vision Zero, right? I mean, yes, how can tolling save lives? Well, anytime you approach a toll gate and you slow down or you have sudden braking, these are all reasons for accidents, right? And so in many ways, we are supporting that Vision Zero aspect. But let me sort of also back up, because I think there is a very key federal policy timeline coming up, and that's the surface reauthorization bill that's up for reauthorization next year, next October. And if you remember, both out of the bipartisan infrastructure law or the predecessor of IIJA, did not include any money specific towards digital transformation. This is digital transformation. In a way, we are approaching transportation through a completely new digital lens. And for us to be able to scale this, we will need to make sure that the surface reauthorization bill allows for not just NCTA, but any other transportation entity out there to be able to act on these innovative ideas. In fact, last week when I was at the ITS World Congress, we had a lot of conversations with the US DOT. And in fact, I think next month, the SMART grants are going to be announced. And there will be some very interesting eligibility criteria for applying for those SMART grants. And I think this is where I would connect, the role electeds and appointeds at the local level and the state level have, is because there's going to be a lot of work that needs to be done to make sure that the surface reauthorization bill allows for innovative ideas like these to, one, first be acted on as a pilot, and then scale both sort of at the state level but across the country.
Okay. Well, I did want to kind of, as we've talked a little bit about safety, but expand on that a little bit more. Brooke, I'd love your thoughts on, how does this pilot balance innovation, but ethical considerations like data privacy, cybersecurity, especially this being a public infrastructure project?
From a product perspective, so OpenShift, Red Hat OpenShift is one of the products that we're using in the pilot. And it's actually a managed service with Microsoft. So it's a joint, we've got two SRE teams, Red Hat and Microsoft, that it's coming together for this product. So within that product is built in, I think I mentioned earlier, 10 layers of security just built into the cluster. I don't want to get too technical either, but it's a secure cluster that is inoperable. Like the base of it is immutable, so no one can get into it unless they are granted access. And there's another product, Red Hat Application Foundation, which includes 3-scale. So when you're making calls into, say it's Mastercard, say it's Volvo, like when the customer is making calls into it. This product also, we know who's accessing the data, we know where they're accessing it, and who would be, trying to access it if it is a malicious intruder, right? So the combination of those, and then I think you guys are also using AMQ, which is a Kafka's, our version of Kafka. So all of these are very, they allow for the open, scalable interoperability that we've mentioned with the security built in. And at the core of OpenShift is Red Hat is SE Linux. That's what we're known for. And it's actually called CoreOS. It was developed for the DoD. It is, again, immutable. No one can get into it unless they have access. So just going back to the privacy, Red Hat does not own any of the data. So the data lives inside the cluster, it is not outside. You have to opt in. So there's really, from a Red Hat perspective, there is no way that there could be nefarious characters trying to get in. But again, I think that is going back to what we had talked about earlier. JJ and Manish were they wanted an open system, right? But they also, with security at the forefront thought of it. And when you think about, and I'm not just saying this because I work at Red Hat, but open source in general is pushing the limits of innovation and security, right? So that's what I can say about Red Hat.
Yeah, no, thank you.
And
And while we're on the topic of safety, Jim, I'd love to get you in on this conversation. I think when anybody thinks about Volvo, safety is one of the first things that comes to mind. So when your team is thinking about this, how do you balance adding a new convenience feature without compromising on, burdening the driver with notifications, but prioritizing their safety while rolling out this new convenience?
I mean, one of the, at the risk of, talking so negatively about transponders, there's a few things that bother us. One is that I've been involved with crash studies for a number of years, and we crash a car every day. We do hundreds of thousands of studies. Since the 1970s, we send a investigation team to every crash within a 200-mile radius of our plant in Sweden. We have the biggest database of crash outcomes anywhere. And you are amazed at what becomes a projectile. When transponders or really anything in the car is not secured, they become a projectile, and they can become in some cases, they can even become a very damaging projectile. Wow. So when our goal is to remove things from the car that don't need to be there, or that the customer has not actively chosen. We're never going to tell anyone they can't take their coffee right into the car, but that is the customer's active choice to do that. It's the same way with their data, right? They are making the active choice to share their data, in this case with NCTA, in order to transact this. And so when we look at it through that lens, we're able to eliminate something which can become a projectile in the car. It runs in the background, and it becomes a driver awareness notification, as does anything else regarding traffic slowdowns, construction, and those other things. What we found is if you're driving through, the driver wants to have some sort of knowledge, especially when you make this transition from the technology, right? I have my transponder, I know that it probably went through. As I go through this transition, it's going to be, how do I know that they picked up the car and then I'm not going to get a fine? So in the demo that we have downstairs, you can kind of see it's right in the navigation system. We have more studies on the sound of chimes than you would probably believe. We have a guy whose entire career is chimes.
That's awesome.
And studying, do they alert the driver? Do they stun the driver? Do they just make them aware? So we picked the one that just makes them aware that something has occurred. It pops up, on the center screen. And so we view that that is an appropriate way of, yeah, we saw you. It's gone through. You don't have to worry about it. And when you take that cognitive load off, they're not, trying to grab it and hold it up to the windshield, or they're not taking the cognitive load of trying to look for a screen somewhere else that, has this kind of gone through. Those are all things that then lead to safety.
Yeah. Well, and Chapin too, as Jim mentioned, transactions captured in the vehicle. Can you tell us a little bit more about the tokenization that JJ mentioned too, of in real terms of, how is that a safer transaction than what's happening on the roadway now?
Yeah, sure, happy to do it. I could get really payment nerdy, but I promise I will try to not do that. Effectively, for anybody who's ever added a credit card or debit card to your Apple Wallet, you are tokenizing your card, which is really creating kind of a digital and highly secure representation of your card. It has a different number and stuff like that. But in order to facilitate this, what we needed to do is we needed to create a digital representation of the car and attach that to a payment method. So we took a combination of the VIN and the license plate, merged that all together with payment credentials, and you've now created a unique token that exists just for that car, and it makes the facilitation of that payments highly secure in the same way it would be if you were tapping your phone on a payment terminal. So I would say just whether you're buying a coffee or driving through and paying a toll, Mastercard applies that same level of rigor and security to all those transactions. So if anybody wants to really nerd out with me later, I'll be available to talk about tokens, but I think that's the high level view.
Yeah, no, thank you. And so JJ, I would love to get your thoughts too on, we have an opportunity here to prove a concept. How do we account for building public trust in this first step? How do you think about that?
Yeah, you just start like this, telling everybody what we're doing, right? And telling how it's going to work, right? So, on the public side, I've been doing this a long time. The questions come up when you're not saying something, and a lot of times we work on this all the time, and we just assume everybody knows what we're doing, and they don't. So this is new to everybody. So how is it going to work, and why is it more secure, and what's the advantage for me, right, on that side? If you leave any of them holes there, especially around security and signing up and what data they can get, which is really cool as you walk through the app and see, you actually get to check what you want to see, what you want to share. And again, it wasn't, I was really impressed that Volvo didn't reinvent that. They pretty much took it from the cell phone, right? It's the same thing you do when you sign up an app that's going to use your location services on your phone. It's the same, right? So it's what people are used to. So we really tried, as we said before, we really tried to make this customer focused. And when you start inventing new things and trying to make things better right out of the box, you're probably doomed for some kind of failure. I mean, I'll pick on EasyPass because I was responsible for this, and it was a mistake, right? A couple parts of it. When we did EasyPass, there was already a transponder-based system in Texas, but we're in the Northeast. We know better than the South, right? So we decided to do a different type of transponder. We went out and found something different, right? Not to say it was wrong, right? But nobody's going to drive from New York to Texas. Nobody's going to ever do that, right? And then Florida did their thing, and it just kind of evolved in the wrong direction, right? So, and the other thing is, the customer has to understand the transaction and how it's going to work. When you talk about how Jim explained it great. So when you talk about how this works compared to how it works today, it's just easier, right? It's the same now as putting the credit card on your phone, right? Now going to wherever and tapping and go. It's the same thing. Now the car's doing the tap, right? So it's just, you have to be open. And For instance, we went to the legislature last year and got some permissions to be able to do some things today, anticipating what we were going to need in the future. We don't want to surprise the political side of this either. My boss is the Secretary of Transportation. I meet with him, at least once a month, if not more, right? Talk to him about what we're doing, among other things. So my board, well, about half of them are sitting here, right? We talk about it all the time, what we're doing, right? So it can't be a surprise on any level. So working in government is a little different. I was on the corporate side for a while too. You still have the corporate politics, but then now you have the political politics, which are also different. And in order to manage that, you have to be more open. And you have to expect that some people are going to come back with a lot of questions, and you have to be able to answer them up front. So instead of having it just fester, because what happens then, the public, we'll probably get some press out of this. And then it's going to spawn more questions over the next few weeks and stuff like that. That's great. We want that. Maybe something we are doing wrong. We want to know that up front. We want to know it now. So people are saying, why the pilot? One of the reporters, when we started this, why do a pilot? Why don't you just turn it on, right? Because nobody's done this before, right? When we did all electronic here, nobody did that before. We took the toll booths out. People told us we were crazy, right? How are you going to collect the money? What if somebody doesn't pay? How are you going to manage that, right? Now everybody's doing it, right? Because if we were to come today and tell the public here that we're going to put toll booths on our new project, I'd probably be out of a job by tomorrow, right? So, it's just, but you have to be able to introduce it. That was a big introduction we had to sell, not only to the public, but we finance our projects. So the people that are investing billions of dollars into these projects had to understand that we had a way to collect that money, right? So, and that introduced some other change. So everybody looks at video now. There's cameras everywhere. They do facial recognition. They do license plate recognition. They do everything. When we started the all electronic, and there's some people in the room that remember this, right? There wasn't that. There were cameras, but they were terrible at that recognition. We were doing around 50%, right? So we didn't invent the technology, but we had to listen to people to make it better. And we did. And now we're up in the upper 90%, right? In order to make the transition to all electronic work. So there was one problem solved, but we had to solve a second one to make the first one work. So we may see some of that, and we just need to be open. We have to be open with each other as partners as we move forward with this thing, right? So again, it's really cool in this particular case that most of the technology is here. We're just putting it together. But anytime when you start binding these technologies together, right, there's potentially issues, right? So, I mean, how many people have had an update to any one of their software programs on their phone or on their PC and had a problem with it? Never happens, right? 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 So it's the same. So we want to be able to pilot it. We want to be able to get some people and get some real feedback, right? We do it with our customers now. Taylor, you just had a open thing where we had customers come in and talk about what they know and what they don't know about us and what we're doing, because we have to be able to figure out how to communicate. We have a lot of different demographics to communicate across. We talk tech, right? Jim knows everything about the car industry and stuff. But, but how about the finance industry? How about the credit card industry? How about, the data security stuff, right? We can't all know it all. So that's, well, that's why we have 1 million consultants too, but on that side. But, it's all about communications. As I said before, it's putting the right people in the room at the right time, but it's also about communicating out what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how it's going to work.
Yeah. So we're greasing the wheels from a PR perspective. We've got that down. If you guys had any advice for local municipalities, other state agencies, other states that are looking to roll out technology like this in the future, what are the technical solutions or the technologies that they need to start investing in now to make that transition a little bit easier? Open to anyone.
I mean, I don't know, I can't speak from a technology standpoint, but I think the challenge that we're going to have with this is making sure that the public knows that this is their choice to do this, right? The car is not going to automatically start reporting location information to government agencies. And I think that is a potential barrier, and I think the risk is reflexes, right, on then trying to regulate that. And you know, when we talk about kind of the data and the protection, I think establishing the fact that all of these things, and one of the early conversations that we had with this pilot is, you know, how could we make it where it is like the subway systems, right, where you could just bind a credit card to the car and then just have it pay all the tolls as it goes. And we came back and we said we can't do that because of the structure that we have and the regulations that we have, right? The customer has to actively opt in. We can't report vehicle data unless there's an active opt-in. So now it's going to become, okay, the implementation of this type of thing. Once you present it to the customer, they're going to do it. I don't think there's going to be a lot of pushback, but it's going to be the rollout when we go with this and saying, no, you have to sign in, you have to opt in, and then this will work really well. But we're not going out there and just ticking off all of you know, people's information and then sending it somewhere. So I view it, you know, less as a technology problem and more of a, you know, kind of awareness problem of where we want to go. Because everyone's convinced that the vehicle data, first of all, has a ton of value, and in many cases it does not, and that it's being sold and being monetized and all of that. And this isn't any of that. There is nothing to monetize. It is a better way and a more modern way of doing something that has been being done for decades. It's just doing it in a much cleaner way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me add to that if I can too. So I really see the long-term vision of this is, you know, people don't have a lot of problems with sharing their data or moving their credit card unless it's government, right? Sharing it with government's the problem. And I really see as this moves forward, you know, the toll agencies for the most part, let me go back a little bit. When we did Easy Pass, we originally wanted to bid a customer service center. We were going to put it in the street. Well, first of all, there wasn't a lot of interest because nobody believed 7 government agencies in 3 different states could ever talk to each other. It would never work, right? But the other problem is, you know, how do you make that work? So I really see that in the future, if we make this work, ultimately, we don't want to run the customer service centers. We don't want to pay for that infrastructure, right? I really see this as just a commercial entity, and the toll agencies get their money, right? It takes all that, you know, overhead off of the government agency, which should reduce the cost of the whole project to begin with, and puts it in places where people are used to doing it, right? So we talk about there's a big session with the DMV. There's one here with us right now, right? Government generally isn't really good at the customer side. I think we are, but that's just me.
Of course.
But that's because Logan's sitting next to me and he'll
Right.
Right? But, you know, I really see that this is more, eventually is commercial, where you go through, you pay your toll, and the money comes to the agency, just like if you're any other commercial transaction. Pretty much that's what this is. Now, it's going to take a while. There's some hurdles we're talking through right now. I mean, part of the problem is the toll transactions in some cases could be very small. You know, they could be pennies or, you know, $50 or something like that. So, we're working through that.
Well, I think I know a couple of things about technology, so I'm going to stick to the technology side of this. I think the holy grail for this tech comes down to how road usage charges are going to be rolled out, right? And I think if we kind of look at the landscape, right, it's a bigger question than just tolling. Right? It's fundamentally about how do we fund our transportation system. And I think that's where this is going to become really important, is how are different states adopting the road usage charge model? And how are they, at the end of the day, charging, users for that? Is it, per vehicle miles traveled? Is it the monthly charge? Is it an annual charge like your vehicle registration? This tech gives people the flexibility of being able to pay for that from directly their cars. It gives them the flexibility of knowing exactly where the cars are driven, how many miles are being driven, and all of those kinds of things. So I think that's where I think it'll be the key. Now, there's an interesting twist to this as well. There's about 13 states in the country that have specific data privacy laws. Sharing data and being able to then, process that data becomes challenging in those 13 states. And that consistency or lack of consistency is going to be a challenge. This is where I think the role of the federal government is going to become even more important, is how do they perhaps create policies through USDOT or through FTA or otherwise FHWA, right, you name it. How do they create these policies that bring consistency for different states to be able to adopt this technology? How do they bring consistency for automakers to make these technologies available, right? Because if you have, I'm just going to pick on Ford as an example, right? Ford runs on a completely different operating system than Volvo. And if you look at the Volkswagen Group, their operating system's fundamentally different. Same thing with BMW. Now, how is this app, which is currently based on Android, function in those operating systems? And if those operating systems are quote unquote being hosted from the countries of their origin, how does that then comply to the data privacy laws within specific states? And so I think there'll be a little bit of complexity behind this that policymakers, technologists will have to address. The good part, though, is as a result of this pilot, we are able to address some of those at a very granular level, right? And where specifically by design, we are able to address those things. I mean, we talk about PCI compliance, right? That's the fundamental compliance criteria for payments. And no one better than Mastercard to be able to come in and say, no, we got this covered. We got the tokenization piece covered. We heard from Volvo in terms of even the chimes being to a level where, by the way, I never knew that level of research was going on.
Chime guy.
Yes. And in fact, I actually want a tour of your facility if you ever will be up for it.
Dream job.
But I think,
Quirky.
well, I know about being quirky.
I mean, if you were listening to chimes all day.
No, but that's the key piece, is like for us, and I am a recovering public servant myself, right? As a public servant, you are a steward of your residents' data. And so there's more scrutiny on how you use that data and what's the outcome. Same thing with taxpayer dollars. All of these are just sort of extensions of data, right? And I think by design, and I think this is something that we take very seriously at Microsoft, we are also, if you didn't know, the largest cybersecurity firm in the world, right? And we are seeing billions of signals of cyber attacks happen on a daily basis. And anytime we do a pilot like this, right, and you talk about technology that other states have to worry about, well, think about how many people are going to try to break the system. And it's just not an NCTA issue. It's a Mastercard issue. It's a Red Hat issue. It's a Volvo issue. And there are teams from Microsoft and other cybersecurity firms that are working consistently with every one of these companies to be able to address this. So I can keep going on, so I'll probably stop right here.
No, that was great. I think that's a good bow for taking some time to get some questions answered from the audience. Kim's going to run around. She's got a mic that she'll hold out to you. So if you have a question, please raise your hand, state your first and last name, the firm that you're with, and your question.
Can you stand up? Up here, come up here. Come up here.
Go easy on us, Jason.
That's all right. Okay, very good, thank you. First, I'm Jason Conley, Omni-Air Consortium. Would love to commend the team for the hard work they're doing on this. And we're really excited to see this pilot project in progress. And so I'm starting with JJ, but then maybe to the entire group. The tolling industry is sort of an inflection moment where there are some concerns about spectrum availability and potential interference and the format of electronic toll collection that's been used for some time. What has been the reaction as you've shared this vision with your peers in other tolling agencies? And how scalable do you believe this project and similar projects will be like this?
Yeah, well, even before the current threats to the frequency band, we've been talking about alternates. I mean, the Alliance for Toll Innovation group that I chair, we know that the technology is aging. We know that we have to move forward. We know that the public demands are changing, right? I go back to history in E-ZPass. When we started E-ZPass, originally we didn't trust the technology to determine the class of the vehicle. So we had 7 different color transponders, right? Unfortunately, some of the states in New York had non-revs. North Carolina doesn't have that. Everybody pays, including us, right? But was orange. When we gave that to the board of some of the big agencies in New York, they went, no way, I'm not putting that in my car, right? I have this nice Volvo or Cadillac and it's just orange, you kidding me? So that's why the transponder color went away. So we've been talking about that technology around the transponder for a long time. Unfortunately, I think as toll collections evolved, we've concentrated too much on the hardware. Again, back when we started E-ZPass, it was like, what transponder we're going to use, what technology we're going to use. That wasn't the hard part. The hard part was how do we work together, right? And so through ATI, I've already talked to 15 agencies and within strategically, and we're talking about piloting it out from there. Manish's mandate in this is open, right? Open APIs. So we want to make it easy for everybody, no pun, right? To connect to this, right? So one of the advantages has, we've worked on everybody's systems, back office systems. So we think we're going to be able to, through open APIs, to be able to just, it's never as easy as you just say, turn it on, but to make it as easy as possible for these agencies just to connect. And it's going to be a transition. As I said, it's going to be an evolution, not revolution. We're not saying, throw all your transponders out tomorrow, right? This is going to take a while. I mean, all the cars aren't ready yet, right? So it takes, 15 years to turn the fleet, roughly? So just on that side, it's going to be a transition. So, and I think that's how it's going to happen. It's going to be another form of payment. So from a toll agency side, should I care? Should I care if it's a transponder payment or a car payment? I'd rather the car payment because it's a lot more customer friendly. But if I have to go through that transition period and I'm still collecting the revenue, should I care? Right? So, Manish just presented it to the E-ZPass Executive Committee and it went pretty well, right? So, we've been touting it, as I said, it's all communications. There's been no secrets. If anybody doesn't know that we're doing this, then they're not paying attention to the industry because if you follow me on LinkedIn, it's all over the place. So it's just something we're moving.
If I could comment also, I think the other thing, and connectivity issues are a challenge everywhere. And I don't think any of us assume 100% connectivity ever. And as soon as we make that assumption, we have to have a backup plan that says, okay, what happens if the connectivity is not available at that moment? And I can say, again, we have a couple dozen examples I can think of right off the top of my head that says, what happens if your card payment fails in a retail transaction? What about if you're paying for a subway and you have to, check to see if the card has enough balance before you get on? All that stuff, all of those technologies can be applied to both online and offline transactions, which I think allows for some of that bulletproofing and scaling that we talked about.
Any other questions, Jim?
Just one quick thing too. People that are going to try to evade tolls are likely not going to sign up for the app. So you still need those infrastructure bits to go for, those folks. And, that is, so what I think you're going to do is you're going to simplify for those that do what they're supposed to do, but you're still going to need, these other systems for those that try to get around what it is that they're supposed to do.
Yeah. Piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, and they can be very creative.
Oh yeah, we've seen it all. Any other questions from the audience?
Stand up.
Paul Devenish from the North Carolina Budget Office. Question about, I haven't signed up for VW's system because I thought the data was sold to insurance companies, and I think a lot of people are sort of suspicious of how data is used. I love the idea, I think it's a fantastic idea, but I'm still not sold. So I can see the use for mileage-based user fee. From a budget point of view, we definitely want to go down that route if people can buy it. But I'm not sure still about the belief, the trust in the car companies not selling the data on.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. GM, they had an issue where they were making it, according to the legal complaint, obscure. I'm not going to judge, right or wrong. Every car maker, of course, does have some different approach, to it. So and as Americans, we are always very skeptical of, data. And look, I have Google in the car, and Google has that same, worry as well. And so that's why it is something to overcome. And when we talked about, I think one of the biggest challenges that we have, and it goes beyond just this project, is to say, very clearly what does the data do? And we've been very clear as a company, we are not in the business of selling data. Even when we talk about these transactions, really what we just need to do is, it's the cellular data, the cost of the transmission that we need to cover. There is no selling of data, and that's the position that our company has taken. Some others have taken different tacks. I think, though, what everything is coalescing around, though, as an industry, is that it is the customer's data, and the customer should be very clear on what they are releasing and what they are not, and that there should not be monetization of the data. So we are working on a program, right, with insurance companies, because insurance companies can offer lower rates if they share their data. But then we go to the customer and say, do you want to do this, right? Because it is your car, it is your data. We will enable it for you to get the benefit of what you want, but that is up to you. I think some of the more things like selling it for, billboard companies to know who is passing by and stuff like that, stuff from your phone is much more valuable, and much more granular than anything that you get from your car. So it goes, kind of both ways. That's why when I talk about the value of the data, I think the value of the data is more in reporting accidents and slippery roads and wrong way and stuff like that. And that, from our experience, customers are willing to share because they get a benefit from it. And that's going to be one of the things with this is we have a mode in the navigation that if you don't want to go on a toll road, it'll navigate you around the toll road if you never want to pay tolls. It's not the best route, but that again is the choice that you give the customer with that data. So I agree, it's going to be a challenge. I view it as just as difficult as the technical challenge, but I think that's where we need to work together. And one of the benefits, we've been pitched by third-party companies for years on doing something with tolling. And we always said no. One, because they wanted our customer to pay. And I'm like, why does the customer want to pay an extra nickel or an extra dime per transaction for a toll that they're probably not already thrilled that they're paying? But then also it wasn't clean, right, in how the data was being used and how many hands it's going through before it gets to the people that it needs to get to. And really, North Carolina was the only one that, you know, came up and said, hey, we want to try this. We want to do something differently. And we agreed to do it because it was such a clean process of removing as many middlemen as possible and getting the information and just the information that's needed, right, from one point to the point that needs it that the customer will allow. If you're explaining, you're losing, and you know, to explain all that is going to be tough. But it's going to be one of those things where we ask at the store when we set up the car. It's like, hey, by the way, have you signed in for the tolling app? Because, you know, it'll follow you from car to car, and it'll do all these things. We need to build the value for the customer, and I think there's enough value here that the customer will go along with it.
I also think it's a generational thing. I think younger people don't care where their data is, to be honest. Like, Facebook breach, who cares? Somebody will take care of it, right? Like, I really do think that younger people, I think older people care more because they see, you know, they've been through it. I think younger people just, they're like, well, there was a Facebook breach, I'm still gonna post. Like, you know, who cares? I'm not gonna change my password. So I think that's something, when you start looking at the communication and rolling it out from a PR perspective, like, that's something you're gonna have to consider, is the different, you know, who is going to be buying into this, because I think some people care more, some people definitely care less.
Yeah. Any other questions from the audience?
Hi, Chris Ottaviano with HNTV. Mr. Eden, you spoke a little bit about getting the right people in the right room. For a partnership like this, what does it take on the private side to meet with a public entity to get a pilot like this started?
Probably should ask the people on the private side, but I think we're a little scary sometimes because of the politics.
A little?
Okay, a lot. You know, so I think, you know, we're different a little bit here in the Turnpike because we have a lot of restrictions that were taken off of us when we were created to be able to do things like this. So, and we have a lot of autonomy. So I think that's it. I think if we're normal, if this was, not to pick on a Northeast agency, but one of the agencies up there, it'd be a lot harder, right? You know, the politics are different. And it all comes down, like, even when I hire consultants, I don't hire companies, I hire people, right? So it's the people that are involved. I mean, one of the things, we have Manish, right, on the CTO side here. He, you know, he's worked on every toll collection system in the world, right? Besides for creating the security stuff for the slot machines in Vegas, but by the way, I took them with me, it didn't work. But anyway, you know, so it's the kind of the trust factor you can build from the people side too, right, to make it happen. And then it's not only the initial meeting, it's like meeting somebody for the first time. You know, when you meet somebody, you're setting an expectation, you're starting to look at, can I trust this person, where are they going, what's their motivation, and all that. You're evaluating each other. But then as you move forward and start talking about the conversations, right, you get to build that trust, hopefully. And that's what we try to do here. Whether you worked with us for a while over the summer, you know, and, you know, we're different. We're different than a lot of corporations that I've worked for, too. We're, you know, I don't believe in titles when we have a problem, we're working in a meeting. You know, we're working on a problem, we're working on the innovation, and we do that across the board. Whether it's a consultant or an employee, they're the same, right? We need to solve the problem, we need to move to the future. And a lot of times in government, you have bigger ego in that side, and we just don't allow it in our group. So I think that, you know, that's the key, right? And we try to, for the most part, keep the politics out. So from there, so.
Yeah.
Maybe I could just comment quickly. I think, JJ, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this whole thing sort of came to be because of a conversation you and Elizabeth had at IBTTA in Atlanta kind of 2 years ago, which I guess just reinforces the importance of convenings like this. But I do agree with you completely. It's all about the personal connection, because if I think you have common purpose and people that are willing to roll up their sleeves and get after it, I think that's kind of what started the ball roll. You've had this concept in your head for years, and just needed the right groups to come together to make it happen, I think.
Right team, and I think we have it, so.
Well, and I'll say, one of the guys who is not here, I wish he was, on my team, these guys were just so open. I mean, I know we keep on saying open, but truthfully, like, we would meet in the office, show them, sketch out an architecture, nope, don't like this, but we would, like, iterate right there as it was happening, and then as as you brought Mastercard in, as you brought Volvo in, as you brought Microsoft in, and this just openness, it was like, hey, we have to work together. There is we're for the residents, right? And so it just became, and to your point, the people, but it was just iteration after iteration, but it was also, it was so collaborative. And it just felt like you were just like visiting a friend in their office. Let's talk about this. But it was a serious project, and but it was, I would say, it was so easy to work with everybody.
Well, I think that's a great kind of bow on the conversation. We are at time. If you want to stay up to date on the pilot, we do have a webpage up. You can visit ncdot.gov/pay-in-vehicle. The panelists and I are going to head down to the Volvo car. If you want to take a look at the actual in-app experience, please join us down there. I'd like to invite NCDOT board member Clark back up here to close us out.
Yeah, great conversation. Really enjoyed it. You all are really trying to get things done. I think that's great. So lunch is next downstairs in the exhibit hall, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.